The sound of the slap tore through the first-class cabin like a thunderclap against velvet silence. Naomi Reed's head turned slightly with the force of it, one cheek burning, the other still wet with her baby's tears. Ava whimpered in her arms, small fists clutching at the air. Lydia Cross, the flight attendant in navy blue, stood above her, chest heaving, face bright with false authority. Phones rose like judgment. Someone whispered, "Finally, someone with backbone." Naomi didn't speak. She only adjusted her daughter's blanket, her fingers trembling against the embroidered name tag that read, "Mrs. N. Reed, Gold Elite Member." The air hung heavy, part perfume, part prejudice, while silence became its own verdict. Have you ever been punished for staying calm, simply because your silence made someone else feel small? The cabin's hum settled into a nervous rhythm, the kind that fills a room after cruelty has been committed, but no one dares to name it. Naomi Reed sat motionless, her profile calm against the window's sterile glow. The faint reflection showed a woman in her early 30s, mahogany skin, neat curls pinned beneath a silk scarf, and eyes too tired to plead, too wise to explain. Ava stirred in her arms, soft breaths breaking through the metallic air. Naomi pressed a kiss to her daughter's forehead, whispering something that sounded like prayer, but was really resolve. Around her, first-class passengers fidgeted, avoiding her gaze as if decency were contagious. On the floor beside her seat, a small leather diaper bag leaned against a carry-on embossed with gold initials. NR. Inside the bag, beneath formula bottles and a folded baby blanket, lay a phone. Screen dark, but waiting. Its last message read, "Aerolux legal merger announcement, 2:00 p.m. EST, all systems ready." No one here would guess that the quiet woman they'd just humiliated had written half of the legal framework for that merger, or that she had once been the firm's youngest counsel, celebrated in boardrooms that now bore her husband's name. Naomi had traded power for peace the day Ava was born. She'd walked away from the storm of ambition to raise her daughter without cameras, titles, or security details. She wanted a life where she could be simply Mom, not Mrs. Reed, wife of Daniel Reed, CEO of Aerolux Airways. But privilege doesn't erase prejudice. It only changes its disguise. Lydia Cross didn't see a mother or a professional that morning. She saw a problem wrapped in brown skin and silence. Every cruel glance, every muttered comment from the passengers echoed the same unspoken rule. First-class comfort was for those who looked the part. Naomi knew the game too well. She'd seen the same expressions across corporate tables, in negotiations, where men mistook her calm for compliance. So she did what she always did. Breathe, observe, wait. Outside the cabin, engines rumbled, impatient for departure. Inside, judgment sat heavier than luggage. Naomi reached into her bag and touched the back of her watch, a modest black timepiece with a hidden engraving. "To my brilliant wife, DR." The initials caught the light as she whispered to herself, almost too softly to hear. Dignity never raises its voice. It doesn't have to. Before she was Naomi Reed, the woman sitting quietly in seat 2A, cheek burning beneath a stranger's palm. She was Naomi Carter, the youngest senior legal advisor in the history of Lexington and Rowe corporate law. Back then, power came in the shape of cold conference rooms and endless nights spent polishing language until it gleamed sharper than truth itself. She'd built her reputation on silence, not submission, but strategy. In boardrooms filled with men twice her age, silence was her scalpel. That was where she met Daniel Reed. He wasn't yet the billionaire face of Aerolux Airways, just a driven engineer with ideas too big for his salary and a mind that moved like lightning. Their first meeting wasn't romantic. It was war. He'd accused her firm of delaying his patent filings. She'd accused his department of breaching protocol. Both were right. Both were furious. And both, for the first time, were seen. What began as rivalry turned into long nights over coffee and quiet respect. Daniel saw in Naomi a kind of discipline that mirrored his own. Relentless, exact, unafraid of truth. When he proposed, he did it without champagne or grand speeches. Just a simple line. You see the world like it could be fixed. And Naomi, after a lifetime of fixing things for everyone else, finally let someone fix her loneliness. The years that followed were golden and ruthless. Together they built Aerolux from a struggling regional carrier into an empire that touched skies across continents. Naomi's name appeared on patents, contracts, philanthropic foundations. She had everything the world claimed to envy, except rest. Then came the night that rewrote her rhythm forever. She was 8 months pregnant when the board meeting stretched past midnight. Daniel was still in the hangar, overseeing the test of a new eco-engine. Naomi sat alone in her office, reviewing a liability clause, when the call came. Her mother's voice breaking through static. He's collapsed, baby. Your daddy's gone. The world that had always made sense suddenly didn't. At the funeral, her body ached from both grief and pregnancy. Daniel stood beside her, silent as a mountain. He didn't offer comfort. He offered presence. That was enough. When Ava was born weeks later, Naomi swore something sacred. She would not raise her child inside the noise that killed her father. The endless striving, the invisible war to prove worth. So she left. Quietly. No press release. No scandal. Just a resignation letter on Daniel's desk and a kiss on her sleeping daughter's forehead. She traded her briefcase for lullabies, her tailored suits for worn cotton sweaters. For a time, peace felt strange, like a language she was learning from scratch. But even peace comes with ghosts. The old instincts never left her, reading a room, tracking tone, sensing when the air shifts before the storm. Which was why, when Lydia Cross's voice sliced through the cabin that morning, Naomi already knew what was coming. She recognized the tone, polished cruelty wrapped in customer service training. She'd heard it in depositions, in promotions she'd been passed over for, in the trembling apology of the intern who'd once called her articulate for her background. History doesn't always repeat itself. Sometimes, it just changes uniforms. As the plane's clock ticked toward departure, Naomi's phone vibrated once in her lap, a reminder of the world she'd walked away from. Aerolux merger. Live announcement in 20 minutes. Daniel would be on that stage soon, unveiling a new chapter for their empire. He didn't know that his wife, the quiet foundation of everything he built, was sitting a few gates away being humiliated by one of his own employees. Naomi looked down at her daughter's sleeping face, so small and peaceful against the chaos. Ava's tiny fingers still clung to her mother's necklace, a thin gold chain bearing a single charm, a feather. Her father's gift, his words engraved on the back, "Stay light, even when the world is heavy." Naomi brushed the charm gently, her breath steady. She would stay light. For now. Outside, the engines of Flight 218 began their slow, mechanical hum. Inside, prejudice waited to board, unaware that the woman they'd branded unworthy of first class had written the very policy that defined it. And somewhere above the clouds of judgment, destiny was circling for descent. The cabin door sealed with a hiss, trapping tension like a secret no one wanted to hold. Lydia Cross stood in the aisle, posture sharp enough to cut glass. Her polished heels clicked once against the floor, a cue for silence, a queen claiming her stage. "Captain Hayes," she spoke into her radio, voice laced with righteous composure. "We've got a code yellow in first class. Disruptive passenger with an infant, refusing to comply with crew instructions. Naomi Reed looked up. Her voice, when it came, was soft but steady. I haven't refused anything. Lydia's smile didn't reach her eyes. Ma'am, your child's disturbing other passengers. Either you manage her noise, or I'll have to ask you to deplane. Phones rose again, screens glowing, recording, judging. A man in an expensive suit muttered. Finally, someone's maintaining standards. An elderly woman in pearls nodded. People these days have no respect for others' comfort. Each word landed like another slap, invisible but sharp. Ava began to cry again, startled by the sudden hostility. Naomi rocked her gently, whispering, "It's all right, sweetheart. Just breathe." Her calmness only infuriated Lydia further. She needed a reaction, something messy to prove her authority. But Naomi stayed still, eyes down, holding her composure like a blade hidden behind silk. "Captain," Lydia continued through the radio, her tone sweetly venomous. "I'm recommending removal before departure. Passengers already delayed us 8 minutes. Static crackled back. "Copy that, Lydia. Security standing by." Naomi's phone vibrated once on her lap. 14 minutes until merger announcement. Her husband's world, her world, was about to make headlines. And here she was, headline of a different kind. One video away from public disgrace. Lydia crouched slightly, lowering her voice into something falsely maternal. "Honey, I don't know what scam you pulled to get this ticket, but first class isn't a daycare." A few passengers chuckled, relieved to laugh at someone else. Naomi lifted her gaze just enough for their laughter to die. "Check my boarding pass," she said simply. Lydia snatched it, glanced at the gold emblem and tossed it back. Anyone can fake these now. Try again. From across the aisle, a college-aged woman whispered to her phone camera. "Y'all, this flight attendant just slapped a mom with a baby." "I can't even." Her live viewer count surged. Thousands watching, commenting, judging. Finally, someone disciplining bad parents. That mom looks entitled. Hero attendant energy. Naomi's ears buzzed with the static of digital cruelty. It was the same tone she'd heard in courtrooms, the collective hum of people deciding someone's worth before learning their name. She adjusted Ava's blanket again, hand trembling only slightly. "I paid for this seat," she said. Lydia scoffed. "Sure you did. Let me guess. Someone's miles or a special favor?" A businessman nearby smirked into his drink. The cruelty was casual, like breathing. Ava whimpered again. Naomi reached into her bag for baby formula, and for one moment, light caught something inside. A flash of platinum. An Aerolux executive access card. Lydia's eyes narrowed. "What's that?" "Just my credentials," Naomi replied. "Fake IDs now, too? You people never stop." The words slipped out before Lydia could stop them. You people. And though no one said it aloud, the meaning spread through the cabin like spilled ink. From the cockpit speaker, Captain Hayes' voice filled the silence. "Crew, prepare for final boarding clearance." Naomi inhaled deeply. Her watch ticked softly against her wrist. 10 minutes until everything changed. Lydia straightened, smug again. "Ma'am, this is your final warning. If you refuse to deplane voluntarily, I'll have federal air marshals escort you out." Naomi looked up, her eyes suddenly colder. "Before you make that call," she said, "verify my passenger status." "Excuse me." Lydia blinked. "I said," Naomi repeated, calm as gravity, "verify my status." The words carried weight, not loud, but absolute. Lydia's confidence wavered for the first time. "You threatening me?" "No," Naomi said softly. "I'm offering you mercy." The college student's live stream jumped past 8,000 viewers. Comments shifted tone, curious now, uncertain. Why she's so calm? That lady's too composed. Something's off. The attendant's overdoing it. A man in the window seat opened his laptop and typed furiously on an aviation forum. Witnessing discrimination in real time. Aerolux Flight 218. Within minutes, industry professionals were tuning in. But Lydia didn't notice. Her pride had already taken the controls. "Captain," she barked into her radio. "Passenger remains non-compliant, requesting immediate ground security." The response came curt and final. "Copy. Security en route." Naomi exhaled slowly, rocking Ava back to calm. Around her, whispers bloomed like weeds. Should have stayed in economy. Attention seeker. Imagine the nerve. Her heart pounded, but not from fear. It was something deeper, the quiet ache of recognizing that even after building an empire, her skin still signed its own verdicts. 10 minutes. 9. 8. The plane's engines rumbled, impatient. Lydia's footsteps echoed like a countdown. Naomi whispered to Ava, her lips brushing the baby's ear. "Hold on, little one. Sometimes dignity needs an audience." Outside, security officers were already walking down the jet bridge. Inside, 1,000 unseen eyes watched from their screens, waiting for a spectacle. But what they would get instead was a reckoning. The cabin lights dimmed slightly, a soft pre-takeoff glow that made the world look distant and unreal. Naomi's reflection trembled faintly in the window, her cheek still red from the slap, her eyes darker now, not from tears, but from restraint stretched to breaking. Security would arrive any minute. Lydia Cross had returned to the front galley, triumphant in her small power, whispering into her radio with the smug rhythm of someone convinced the system would protect her. Naomi could hear the echo of her words even through the engine's hum. Some people think money buys manners. Naomi lowered her gaze to her daughter. Ava's breathing was steady again, her tiny mouth forming the soft O of dreams. For a moment, Naomi envied that peace, the unknowing innocence of someone who didn't yet understand how heavy the world could be. She wanted to stand, to scream, to remind them who she was. But pride can be as dangerous as pain. And she had promised herself, and Daniel, that she'd never let rage choose her words again. Her fingers brushed the back of her watch. The engraving she had once read absent-mindedly now cut through her like a lifeline. To my brilliant wife, Dr. Her mind drifted back to the night Daniel gave it to her. They were in his office, surrounded by blueprints and the hum of jet engines testing on the runway below. He had wrapped the watch around her wrist and said, "When the world rushes to judge, take your time. Time always tells the truth." Back then, she'd laughed softly, not knowing how literal those words would become. Now, under the fluorescent chill of first class, they became armor. The murmurs around her were sharper now, phones buzzing, passengers whispering updates like gossip columnists. Still hasn't moved. She's pretending to be calm. Security's gonna drag her off. Each word sliced a little deeper, and for the first time, Naomi's breath faltered. She felt the edge of collapse creeping up her spine, that quiet shatter that comes not from what's done to you, but from realizing how familiar it all feels. Different setting. Same prejudice. Her eyes closed. In the darkness behind her eyelids, she saw her father again, standing in his old mechanic's shop, grease on his hands, warmth in his smile. "Don't ever let them decide what you're worth, baby," he'd said once. "They don't even know the math." When Naomi opened her eyes again, the ache in her chest had steadied into something colder, cleaner. Resolve. She checked her phone. 7 minutes until the merger announcement. 7 minutes until her silence would stop being misunderstood. 7 minutes until every face that mocked her would realize what they had truly done. She leaned back against the headrest, eyes still, voice quiet enough for only her daughter to hear. Almost over, Ava. Almost. Outside, footsteps echoed down the jet bridge. Heavy, certain. The kind of sound people mistake for authority. Naomi didn't flinch, because what was coming next belonged to her. The jet bridge doors slid open with a hiss. 2 uniformed security officers stepped into the first-class cabin, their expressions tight, already rehearsed for another difficult passenger. Every phone tilted higher, every whisper sharpened. Naomi Reed held her daughter closer. "Ma'am," one officer began, tone clipped and professional. "We've received a request to escort you off this aircraft." Naomi's voice was low but firm. "May I ask on what grounds?" Lydia Cross stepped forward before he could answer. "Disruptive behavior. Non-compliance with crew instructions. She's delayed departure nearly 15 minutes. The officer nodded, glancing at his watch, ready to perform the ritual removal. But then, Naomi's phone buzzed. Loud, clear, impossible to ignore. The screen lit up with a name that silenced the entire cabin. Incoming call. Daniel Reed, Airlux headquarters. The businessman in seat 2C froze mid-sip. The college student filming gasped. Even Lydia's hand faltered against her clipboard. Naomi looked at the officers, then at Lydia. "You might want to wait before you touch me." She swiped to accept the call, activating speaker mode. "Naomi?" Daniel's voice carried the smooth authority of a man used to boardrooms and breaking news. "Are you all right? You didn't check in?" Naomi's tone didn't change. "I'm fine, Daniel. Just an issue with one of your employees. A misunderstanding." There was a pause on the line, the kind that shifts the temperature of a room. "My employees?" Daniel repeated, voice now cold steel. "You're on one of our flights?" "Yes," Naomi said softly. "Flight 218, seat 2A. Every passenger suddenly understood what they'd missed. Lydia's jaw clenched, her throat tightened, but her training told her to smile. "Mr. Reed, I wasn't aware your wife was on board." "Apparently not," Daniel replied, his tone razor sharp. "Put her on now." Naomi handed the phone to Lydia. The woman's fingers trembled as she pressed it to her ear. "Mr. Reed, sir, He cut her off. "Save it. The live stream from this flight is already trending under Asha Antoine's Airlux scandal. I have board members texting me from New York. Step away from my wife. Now." A gasp rippled through the cabin. The businessman who'd mocked Naomi earlier shifted in his seat, color draining from his face. The elderly woman in pearls whispered, "Oh dear Lord." Naomi reached out, reclaiming her phone. Her expression never changed. "Thank you, Daniel. I'll handle it from here." He hesitated, voice softening. "Do you want me to come down there?" Naomi smiled faintly. "No need. Just delay the merger announcement 15 minutes. "Understood." The line clicked off. Silence. Real silence. The kind that strips people bare. Naomi looked at the officers. "Do you still need me to deplane?" They exchanged glances, stepped back quietly. "No, ma'am." Lydia's facade cracked. "Mrs. Reed, I didn't know." Naomi stood slowly, still cradling Ava. Her voice was a whisper, but it filled every corner of the cabin. "You didn't need to know who I was to treat me with respect. You just needed to remember I was human." Lydia swallowed hard, her eyes wet now. But it was too late. Phones captured everything. The apology, the uniform, the trembling. Naomi adjusted the strap of her diaper bag. "Don't apologize to me, Ms. Cross. Apologize to the child you scared." Ava stirred softly, as if punctuating the sentence. Captain Hayes appeared from the cockpit, face pale, posture rigid. "Mrs. Reed, on behalf of Airlux, please accept." Naomi raised a hand. "Don't. Not now." Her eyes flicked toward the passengers still recording. "Save your apologies for the people watching. They're the ones learning what this really looks like. She sat back down, gaze fixed on the aisle. No one spoke, not even Lydia. Within minutes, Daniel's statement hit every media outlet. Aerolux Airways condemns any act of discrimination within our fleet, effective immediately. The crew of Flight 218 will be suspended, pending full investigation. Phones buzzed across the cabin as notifications rolled in. Aerolux trended globally, and under it, another hashtag began to rise. One started by the college student who'd filmed everything. Dignity in silence. Naomi didn't check her phone. She just watched Ava sleep, unaware that her mother's quiet resistance had just rewritten corporate policy. When Lydia passed by again, she stopped beside Naomi's seat. Her voice was small now, stripped of its armor. "I'm so sorry." Naomi didn't look up. "I know." Then, softer. "Learn from it. Don't just regret it." The engines roared to life, finally ready for takeoff. Naomi leaned her head against the window. Outside, the runway lights blurred into gold streaks across the glass, like forgiveness seen through tears. Somewhere far away, Daniel stood before cameras, waiting to announce a merger. But his first words weren't about business. They were about her. "Before we talk about profit, let's talk about people. Because without dignity, every seat is economy." The world called it a scandal. Naomi called it justice. Quiet, clean, and overdue. The plane touched down an hour later under a sky painted in soft gray and silver, the color of endings that don't need applause. As passengers began to unbuckle their seatbelts, no one moved. No one spoke. The hush inside that cabin felt sacred, as if the air itself understood it had witnessed something irreversible. Naomi Reed stood slowly, her baby resting against her shoulder, cheek pressed to the soft rhythm of her heart. Lydia Cross remained frozen near the galley door, eyes swollen from quiet crying, her once crisp uniform wrinkled under the weight of shame. "Mrs. Reed," she said, voice breaking, "I don't expect forgiveness, but I need you to know I'm sorry. For everything." Naomi turned to her, not with anger, but with that same calm stillness that had unsettled everyone hours before. "You don't need my forgiveness, Lydia," she said. "You need to forgive the part of yourself that believed cruelty was easier than compassion." Lydia's lip trembled, but Naomi's tone carried no venom, only truth. Then she adjusted Ava's blanket and stepped past her, each stride deliberate, soundless, dignified. The first-class passengers lowered their eyes as she passed. No one filmed now. No one dared. As Naomi reached the exit, Captain Hayes stood waiting. He looked older somehow, smaller inside his authority. "Mrs. Reed," he began softly, "Mr. Reed has arranged transportation for you at the gate. He's here himself." Naomi hesitated, eyes flicking toward the window. Through the narrow glass, she saw Daniel standing on the tarmac, suit jacket off, sleeves rolled, eyes locked on the cabin door. He looked like a man who'd built empires and was ready to burn them for love. Naomi descended the jet bridge in silence. Each step echoed like a metronome counting down the distance between fury and forgiveness. When she reached him, Daniel said nothing. He simply reached out, brushing the faint red mark on her cheek with his thumb. His touch was reverent, not protective, but equal. "You didn't deserve this," he whispered. Naomi met his gaze. No one does, not even her. For a long moment they stood there, two souls who had built the sky and been humbled by it. Then Daniel exhaled, hand tightening around hers. "What do you want me to do?" Naomi looked past him at the airplane, that gleaming machine bearing his name, their legacy. "Let them learn," she said. "Don't fire her. Don't hide it. Train them. Teach them what humanity costs when we stop seeing it." Daniel nodded slowly. "You're still the better half of this company." Naomi smiled faintly. "I'm just the quieter one." Cameras flashed from the terminal windows. Journalists shouted questions neither of them answered. Because some truths don't need interviews. They just need witnesses. Later, as Naomi walked through the terminal, a small piece of paper slipped from her hand, her first-class boarding pass. It fluttered down to the floor, landing face up, printed in bold letters. Gold Elite, Lifetime Member. A janitor nearby bent to pick it up, glancing after her retreating figure. For a moment, he simply watched her go, a woman carrying a baby, leaving a story behind, like a quiet revolution. Outside, the sky had opened into late afternoon light. Ava stirred awake and reached for the charm around her mother's neck, the feather her grandfather had given her. Naomi kissed her daughter's hand, whispering, "See, little one? Sometimes the softest wings can shake the whole sky." Daniel joined her a moment later. Together, they walked toward the waiting car. The engines of other planes roaring in the distance, reminders that flight always begins with turbulence. Behind them, in the cabin of Flight 218, Lydia Cross stood alone. She removed her service pin, set it gently on a tray, and exhaled a breath that sounded almost like prayer. And somewhere across the internet, the last clip of the incident played. Naomi's voice calm, eyes unwavering, saying only, "You didn't need to know who I was to treat me with respect." It became the line replayed on every screen, every feed, every headline. But to Naomi, it wasn't a speech. It was simply a reminder that silence, when carried with grace, can be louder than justice shouted through a megaphone. Because dignity, once awakened, never goes back to sleep.